ductwork should be no different. Clean kitchen hoods save time, money, and could save a life. Follow us on Instagram today at City of SLT.
Devin Middlebrook, City Council Member, City of South Lake Tahoe. In a renaissance, and I really wanted the city to be leading that and be a part of it and see a lot of these things come to reality and really push our community. Tipping point of where do we want to go, what do we want to become. Obviously things like housing and roads, recreation. I don't know, maybe the one thing people would love to know about me was I was born and raised in Tahoe. I'm a Barton. What they love the most about Tahoe is the outdoors, which you can't complain about, you can't argue with, but it's also the people behind those outdoors and the people that make these.
It's that time of year again. The City of South Lake Tahoe's 4th of July parade, sports groups, schools, and more. All are invited to participate. Float entries are highly encouraged, and the best part is, it's free.
We're social, and we love. Follow us on Twitter today, twitter.com/City of SLT. The latest information about the City of South Lake, it's all just a click away. Visit us online at cityofslt.us.
Lake Tahoe is the jewel of the Sierras and America's all-year playground. Stay and play another day. Winter, spring, summer, and fall. South Lake Tahoe has got it all. Every season, every day of the week, South Lake Tahoe is your adventure destination. Never ends.
Follow us on Instagram today at City of SLT. Kitchen hoods. As it collects, that becomes a fire hazard. A clean kitchen hood reduces fire risk, lowers your insurance costs. Different. Clean kitchen hoods save time, money, and could save a life. Like us on Facebook today. This summer. Then come to the Rec Center to learn how to be a Red Cross certified water safety instructor or lifeguard. And a proficient swimmer, this course is for you. Classes start soon. To sign up, just go to cityofslt.us/water-safety. Get City of South Lake Tahoe news updates first.
Tamara Wallace, Council Member, City of South Lake Tahoe. I am a firm believer that if you can complain, plus I have 5 kids and 3 grandkids, most of whom live here in town, and if I want a better place for them to live, it feels like they've been listened to, and a community that instead of fighting over issues comes together to. So if we're all working together towards the goal, even if we all have different opinions about things, if we can do it together, we will have won. Fairly open. I am a mother, I am a grandmother, I'm a wife who is deeply in love with her husband. Still, after our kids don't get to go out and build tree forts, and you don't get to experience the kind of things that our kids get back here as adults, most of them.
Lake Tahoe is the jewel of the Sierras. Winter, spring, summer, and fall. South Lake Tahoe has got it. South Lake Tahoe is your adventure destination. Stay and play another day in America's all-year playground. Never ends.
We're social, and we like it. Instagram at City of SLT. Follow us on Twitter today, twitter.com/City of SLT. Visit us online at cityofslt.us. Like us on Facebook today, facebook.com/City of SLT. Happened to you. Cooking produces grease, steam, and smoke, which collects in commercial kitchen hoods. As it collects, that becomes a fire hazard. A clean workings of your kitchen ductwork should be no different. Clean kitchen hoods save time, money, and could save a life. Do you want to make a splash this summer? Then come to the Rec Center to learn how to be a Red Cross certified water safety instructor, how to respond to water emergencies. If you're 16 years or older and a proficient swimmer, this course is for you. Classes start soon. To sign up, get City of South Lake Tahoe news updates first. Text Join News to 30890.
Applications are now being accepted from individuals, businesses, sports groups, schools, and more. All are invited to participate. FloatEntry.us/parade to sign up. The City of South Lake Tahoe, working for you.
I'm the City of South Lake Tahoe City Clerk. Well, I've been working in the City Clerk's office for about 2.5 years as the assistant. Natural progression for me to take on a leadership role for the department, which I am passionate about. I won the election that I would learn to ski for the first time after living in South Lake Tahoe for 7 years. I've been now 5 times and I can go down without falling, which is fantastic. We like to go camping and hiking, and the school system is fantastic, and yeah, I love everything.
Tahoe is the jewel of the Sierras and America's all-year playground. Stay and play another day. Winter every season, every day of the week, South Lake Tahoe is your adventure destination. Stay and play another day.
And we like it. Follow the City of South Lake Tahoe. The latest information about the City of South Lake Tahoe, it's all just a click away. Visit us online at City of SLT today. Facebook.com/CityofSLT. Don't let this happen to you. Cooking produces grease, steam, and smoke, which collects in commercial kitchen hoods. As it collects, that becomes a fire hazard. Lowers your insurance costs and keeps your business open. You clean your kitchen every day, so the inner workings of your kitchen ductwork should be no different. Follow us on Instagram today at City of SLT. It's a moment to honor his life. Plus, giving thanks, dozens turned out to see members of the South Lake Tahoe Police Department honored by their peers. And what's up, everybody? I'm Chris Fiore. Here's what's happening in the City of South Lake Tahoe. Beloved Catholic priest Father John Grace passed Tahoe home. A fixture in the community, he was known for his commitment to the Catholic Church, which he served for 70 years. His unwavering support. City Council took a moment to honor Father Grace at their meeting.
We would like to honor a pillar of this community, Father Grace, with a moment of silence. So if you'd please join us.
He started Bread and Broth here in 1989. It's a program that gave people in the area hot, nutritious meals every week, more than any. Meantime, dozens of folks came out to recognize the best of the best at the South Lake Tahoe Police Department. The department held their annual awards ceremony and recognized they went above and beyond the call of duty. Police Chief Brian Euler says it's important to let people know just how much the police department is appreciated.
They've seen through safely during the year is extremely important. So it's a good thing for recognition.
They also took time to honor all the police officers who fell in the line of duty in California this year. Well, the Sierra Boulevard completes stormwater improvements. It'll also feature bike lanes, parking along Sierra Boulevard, and lighting at each intersection. Folks are asked not to travel through that area. Well, the 4th of July parade in South Lake Tahoe is back and bigger than ever this year. We want you to be a part of it, too. Individuals, businesses, sports groups, philanthropy groups, schools, all are invited to participate. Float entries, highly encouraged, and there is no fee. Applications are available online at the web address on your screen, and parade applications are due by June 14th. Well, finally, Maloff is often called the Angel of Tahoe because of her generous charitable giving, including her help with projects like the Senior Center. This week, Maloff was
And Bob Maloff, its most sincere appreciation and gratitude for their generosity and kindness to the citizens of South Lake Council's behalf. Would you please express to Lisa our sincere appreciation, and we have a little gift for her.
Yeah, I will get it.
Thank you.
To the proper people.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good job.
Well, are you looking at South Lake Tahoe? Hey, that's easy to do. You can just follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at City of SLT. That's all for now. I'm Chris Fiore, and we're social, and we like it. Follow the City of South Lake Tahoe on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at City of SLT. City of SLT. The latest information about the city of South Lake Tahoe? It's all just a click away. Visit us online at cityofslt.us.
Lake Tahoe is the jewel of the Sierras and all your playground. Stay and play another day. Winter, spring, summer, and fall. South Lake Tahoe has got a mission. Stay and play another day in America's all-year playground. Lake Tahoe, where the adventure...
Don't let this happen to you. Cooking produces grease, steam, and smoke, which collects and keeps your business open. You clean your kitchen every day, so the inner workings of your kitchen ductwork should be no different. Clean kitchen hoods. Like us on Facebook today. Facebook.com/cityofslt.
Nevada partners, our California partners, both police, law enforcement, and fire.
We're technically a small town and we have the same amount of casualties as Vegas or any big city.
We started in a briefing training going over possible scenarios that
have a joint policy with on an active shooter or hostile event. We had neighboring fire agencies also respond as well as the local ambulance service. We also had very often.
You can feel that there's a lot going on. You can become easily overwhelmed and frustrated. Specifically for this, we're being
accumulating injuries.
It's really easy to talk about how wounds are dressed or tourniquets are applied. When you can actually see it on someone's body, it gives
manipulative skills, not only technical skills.
This is an important training and a great training, I think, for any agency to learn to work together.
These events are never going to go smooth. There's always going to be chaos. So to have any sort of preparation prior to
that Jack provided for us is it lays the foundation for us to all work consistently and effectively together.
I absolutely active shooter type events are just far too common. So to be prepared and to have some sort of training in their pocket is tremendously helpful. And
it's that time of year again. The city wants you to be part of it. Applications are now being accepted from individuals, businesses, sports groups, schools, and more. All are invited to participate. The best part is, it's free. Just head to cityofslt.us/parade to sign up. The city of South Lake Tahoe.
Lake Tahoe news updates first. Text JOIN NEWS to 30890. A Red Cross certified water safety instructor or lifeguard. Instructors will learn how to teach kids and adults to swim. Lifeguards will learn how to respond. Sign up, just go to cityofslt.us/water safety. City of South Lake Tahoe, working for you.
Lake Tahoe is the jewel of the Sierras. And winter, spring, summer, and fall. South Lake Tahoe has got it all. Destination. Stay and play another day in America's all-year playground. Lake Tahoe, where the
social and we like it. Follow the City of South Lake. Follow us on Twitter today. Twitter.com/cityofslt. The latest information about the City of South Lake Tahoe? Like us on Facebook today. Facebook.com/cityofslt. Steam and smoke, which collects in commercial kitchen hoods. As it collects, that becomes a fire hazard. A clean kitchen hood reduces business open. You clean your kitchen every day, so the inner workings of your kitchen ductwork should be no different. Clean kitchen hoods save time today at City of SLT. Remembering Father Grace to honor his life, plus giving thanks, dozens turned out to see members of the South Lake Tahoe Police Department honored by their peers. And it's how to get involved. What's up, everybody? I'm Chris Fiore. Here's what's happening in the city of South Lake. Father Grace was born in Ireland but called South Lake Tahoe home. A fixture in the community, he was known for his commitment to the Catholic Church, which he served. City Council took a moment to honor Father Grace at their meeting.
We would like to honor a pillar of this community.
He started Bread and Broth here in 1989. It's a program that gave people in the people. Meantime, dozens of folks came out to recognize the best of the best at the South Lake Tahoe Police Department. The department held their annual awards ceremony in recognition above and beyond the call of duty. Police Chief Brian Euler says it's important to let people know just how much the police department is appreciated.
For events that they've seen through safely during the year is extremely important. So it's a good.
They also took time to honor all the police officers who fell in the line of duty. Trail, sidewalk, and stormwater improvements. It'll also feature bike lanes, parking along Sierra Boulevard, and lighting at each intersection. The project is expected to be complete by mid-October. For the 4th of July this year, we want you to be a part of it too. Applications are now being accepted to be a part of that parade. Individuals, businesses, sports groups, philanthropy, encourage, and there is no fee. It's free. An application is required to participate. That helps in the planning and execution of the parade. Applications are available. Finally, City Council is honoring a very special person in our community. Airport Road, that's where City Hall is, has officially been renamed Lisa Maloff Way, signed by City Council.
Now, therefore, the City of South Lake Tahoe extends to Lisa and Bob Maloff its most sincere appreciation. On behalf, would you please express to Lisa our sincere appreciation, and we have a little gift for her.
We'll appreciate
Fancy
it.
dancy.
And, I will get it.
Thank you.
To the proper people.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And don't forget, if you want to stay connected with the City of South Lake Tahoe, hey, that's easy to do. You can just follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at City of SLTV.
South Lake Tahoe's 4th of July parade is back and bigger than ever, and we want you to be part of it. Applications are now being accepted from individuals, schools, and more. All are invited to participate. Float entries are highly encouraged, and the best part is, it's free. Just head to you.
Get City of South Lake Tahoe news updates first. Do you want to make a splash this summer? Then come to the Rec Center to learn how to be a Red Cross certified water safety instructor. Will learn how to respond to water emergencies. If you're 16 years or older and a proficient swimmer, this course is for you. Classes start /water safety. City of South Lake Tahoe, working for you. Follow us on
to the City Council meeting of May 21st, and will you please stand and join us in the Pledge of Allegiance? Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, with liberty and justice for all. And
absent is Councilmember Bass.
And Councilmember Bass did notify us at the last council meeting that a bit closer, but he has refused. So to the viewing public, we did make the welcoming and no-go. Off this evening with public comment. This is an opportunity for any member in the public to come forth and talk to the council. Council will make a time for you to come to the council if there's an item that's on the agenda, but you stretching? Straw. Sorry. I knew that. I knew it.
And I've been a resident for 15 years. I'm here to speak about the fact that I believe that the VHR are for the resident owners. And I want to explain to you why I feel that way. On last Thursday, I was at a.m. and the other at 2:30 a.m., screaming very loudly regarding the snow. Okay, but I did not call, I did not get up or anything. On the deck of that house, the VHR house, and that a bear got into it, and the garbage was everywhere. And so that's when I was upset, and I decided I would call. And I called the number 542-7474. One of those questions was, did I want to notify the VHR owner? But then when you had to press and I've had 10 minutes of questions, and now this one is garbled. Okay, so then finally I get through to a person at 4 questions about it's the same kind of questions, and I asked again. I continued to explain what was happening, and she said, okay, if it's been remediated. So when the call came back, it was under a dollar store number, so I didn't answer. By the time I got to the phone, they had already hung up, so I called them back at that number that I mentioned before, and she was saying. And so I was like, wait a minute, there's something wrong with the system that when I call to make a complaint, I'm really now awake because I'm on the phone for so long with answering all these questions. And it goes on and on and on. From my point of view, it's protect the person who is calling, the resident who's calling because of the complaint. And so I was in favor of a compromise for the view that this was just really in favor of the VHR owner. I don't see any reason there should be a compromise. Thank you.
Public that would like to come forward at this time? Sir, with the orange hat, and then we'll go to the gentleman in the back of the room.
My name is Marlon Bedenker. I'm with the California Conservation Corps. We're a program that was established in 1976 by Governor Jerry Brown, and it was modeled after the original civilian concept, is to protect and enhance California's natural resources and communities while empowering and developing young adults. 120,000 program participants. The CCC also has completed 75 million hours of work. So, like I said, there's 26 centers all across California, but about Tahoe centers, we work with several and Tahoe's natural resources, including CAL FIRE, the California Tahoe Conservancy. Members also volunteer in their free time to help support local South Lake Tahoe community. Tahoe Corps members would be Earth Day of South Lake Tahoe, the Dump Day South Lake Tahoe, Firefest South Lake Tahoe, and I'd just like to tell you guys a little bit about my story, and my story relates to a bunch of other Corps members at our Tahoe Center as well, for California, and then I moved here to join the Seas. The reason why I decided to join the Seas was because I was in much of a financial strain on my parents, and I decided to take it upon myself to take an off year, and eventually it led up to me taking 3 years off to continue saving that money. So right now, financial stress, and it doesn't necessarily relate just to college education as well, but we got Corps members who have like on their own apartment, a vehicle to drive around, and it really just makes us more employable, and it makes this program. I learned how to file my own taxes. I've learned how to save money, which is some of the things that, thank you guys. I would like to encourage the community and city council members to approach. They will happily oblige. Thank you guys.
Thank you for coming down. There was a gentleman in the back, and then I believe Ms. Fiore, you wanted to also address the council? Sir?
Here last year regarding the renaming of Columbus Day to Indigenous Peoples Day in South Lake Tahoe. The City Council at the time decided against the general was flawed, and I'm hoping that this current City Council might reconsider their decision. For those who weren't here, and I've also posted an outline at keeptahoetrue.org/timeline since I was last here, which I'd like to relay. The first is that since that time, 3 entire states have renamed the rename just 2 weeks ago, as well as New Mexico and Maine, which both renamed the holiday last month. Columbus, Ohio. Columbus chose not to rename the holiday, but to simply stop observing it altogether, to observe a fake and offensive holiday. However, given our 6,000-year indigenous history and what active cities and states have done and are doing, which is to rename the holiday to Indigenous Peoples Day, that most, if not all, important changes start somewhere below the federal level, usually at some local level. Women's right to vote, and interracial marriage. Most of the really important changes our country has gone to change. It's already started, and I really hope that you'll reconsider and help South Lake Tahoe be part of it. Be part of it. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I'd like to drop these.
Sure. Yep.
Hi there. My name is Nikki Florio, and I run a pollinator and climate project called Be Heroic. We're an adult-focused, waiting for the next generation. And we discussed the issues and impacts behind them, and I had notified most issues as well as as well as information on biochar and remediation. Now, geoengineering natural systems to counteract climate change, and that's the scientific definition. But geoengineering projects, there's different state and federal laws. These projects are occurring so often now that types, several of them are from a single type of technology used in geoengineering, and they have extraordinary impacts on areas. They increase propensity for fire, and they increase intensity of fire. And then also for those of you who are unfamiliar, is a completely different type of technology than 2 and 4G. It uses a millimeter wave technology. It has 80 to 100 gigahertz. These are waves that can go straight through our body. They split single and double DNA states. It's just not all turned on yet. It's also different from other types of technologies because the federal government is involved. So once it's on, it's nearly impossible to take out. There are only 3 cities in the United States who have already taken it out. There's impacts on fire-prone areas. And then the last thing is I would like to speak with any fire or health specialist and anyone who deals with water or the hydrologic system within the basin about biochar. One of the they can take forest waste, anything from ladder fuels to burn piles, chip them up, and then they put them in burners and absorbs all the toxins, everything from toxic elements from burned homes to aluminum, barium, strontium, sulfur. As a soil amendment, it helps retain water and retain moisture, and it has a half-life of about. Nikki Florio at beheroic@gmail, BEEHEROIC@gmail.com. Thanks.
Other members of the public that would like to address the council? Okay, seeing none, we will go ahead and don't blow it. Don't blow it. Yep. Smells good. All right. So I hope our group is here. Are they coming in? I think they're just outside. Oh, here comes the first grizzly on crutches. That's great. Go ahead and just. Or something. Making me nervous. All right. The City Council of the City of South Lake for achieving second place in the State Hockey Championships. Yay! Thank you for making us very proud of you. You should be very proud of your own team success and for representing. To present each of you tonight a certificate of appreciation as well as a hockey puck that has your name engraved on it, and gift from the city for how proud we are of everything that you guys have done. Mayor Pro Tem will present you with both the certificate and the puck, and then if you could just come up and stand up here on Alford. Here? No? Okay. We'll go to Briley Bedell. Blaze Broadhurst. What a great name. Hayden Cannon. Dylan Logan Jorgensen. Jay Hilton. Riley Laura. Jacob Pratt. So I've got 3 names left and 1 person. I'm going to guess Patrick. The coaches, Coach Mike Gunderson. Pratt, is Jake here? No, because son and father are both gone. Got it. How about assistant coach Jefferson Posey? Thank you. Congratulations. Well, congratulations to all of you. We're very proud of you. Go Grizzlies. Certificates for them. Certificates for them. Yeah, there's something.
I'm short. We really miss Cody right now.
I don't know what we're doing, so if you want to.
I realize you.
Coach Hunter.
Jeffrey Ramsey. Ah, there it is. Shane Ramsey.
It's not going to talk.
Come on.
Squeeze in.
Come on.
More?
More.
Nice.
One second. All right.
Thank you, Ryan. You guys can hang this up in the ice arena. Okay, that's what we got that for. In the corner if you want to load it. Got it? Okay.
That was sweet of you guys to do that.
Of course, of course.
Good job. Thank you. Thanks very much.
Thank you. Congratulations.
Good job.
Written reports that are included in our packet. One was from the Planning Commission and the other from Parks and Recs Commission. And I believe.
Thank you. Great to be here. Good afternoon, Mayor, City Council members, City Manager, and staff. My name is Jerry Bendel, and I'm the which is in your packet. And I'll just be outlining a few of the items from that packet, from that report today. First, our questions for changes to our local parks to allow for a more dog-friendly environment. A subcommittee of the Commission was formed of recommendations to present to you for review. Think small steps, think pilot program enforcement. We anticipate presenting these initial recommendations to the Council sometime this summer, or at the latest, the fall. Proposal for the Lakeview Commons. We've received a great deal of input and assistance from the Parks Manager, whose we have outlined in the report our Commission's recommendations regarding the new recreation complex that's been approved by the VP funds associated with this complex have accumulated just under $7 million. They continue to generate over pattern due to the unsurety of the 2% TOT funding stream relating to the still vital and still an important part to the future of this recreation center, especially within the tourist core. That plan presented a new facility, including new aquatics features, 4 full courts, 8 complex for recreating and getting our community together. We have seen some positive movement to the funding, planning, and then the building of the recreation center that our voters had approved. The old recreation complex. That's a little correction from the report we have. It used to be the 3rd Thursday of every month of the future. Lauren Tomaselli, James Steed, and their teams have been great to work with and are strong.
Mr. Middlebrook?
Yeah, you mentioned here at the Bijou Park the master planning. And any other details about that master plan?
Absolutely. Last fall, we did an outreach program at the Bijou Park. We had a great came out in force and really talked about what they would like to see. Currently, they want the city and the council to start thinking of it now. Part of the reason we want to think about it is we want to think about one entrance in. Right now, the golf course is, the access to that golf course is on lands that are leased to us on a yearly basis. We don't current main access point to Bijou Park to then access both the golf course to the left and behind, as well as bike and to fruition. Right now, there is not one in place. And as you probably know, master plans are not inexpensive.
At the rec center, what time is that meeting?
At 8 o'clock.
8 a.m. Okay. And there was a mention here, so I know that the city has approved some specific bike trail snow removal equipment, some type of equipment?
You know, to be honest, I can't speak intelligently enough to that particular funding of snow removal equipment. I may defer to Lauren, or just someone else who might know a little bit more about.
Yeah, I believe Ron Corbett presented on this. Lauren Thomas-Sally, Recreation Superintendent, presented on this recently to count that, but Pete Fink is our commission representative on the JPA, so he reports, distributing funding, but a portion of those funds did supplement some Measure S.
Direct reference to the funding source. It's the same bicycle trail, snow equipment that you've discussed in the past. So.
Okay, could be.
Some funding too. We just want to all make sure we're on the same path so we're not duplicating ourselves, or that we also have the record a little adjustment to that line item saying that it was the city's general reserve that paid for that equipment.
Great, we'll do
everything you're doing and encourage you to keep bringing issues to our attention that we can help with, and keep up the good work that you're doing. All right, and is there any member of the Planning Commission here or anybody that wanted to present that report? No? Okay. City Manager, would you like to introduce this?
Yes, Madam Mayor, Council. I'm very pleased to introduce Marisa, actually the first of 3 scheduled presentations that we have for you over the course of this meeting and your next meeting on June 4th. You'll hear from representatives from the police department to share their perspective. So thank you for being here, Dr. Muscat.
Thank you. I am trying to find somehow have it there, but not here. I don't see it. You see it? I appreciate it. So first of all, I'd like to thank the City Council and the City Manager and the city staff and Chief of Police and Fire Department. Over the last 4 years, we've had really great support, and we really appreciate it. Emma Heineman is our program manager. We hired her in January, and she is here to help support us as we grow our program. So, again.
Sorry. There we go. All we have to do is just...
Okay. I'm sorry, guys. I've been up since like 5 in the morning. I'm probably going to misspeak. Okay. Last time I didn't have slides, so it wasn't quite as challenging for me. But Tahoe Coalition for the Homeless is the first nonprofit in South Lake Tahoe to focus specifically on issues related to homelessness. And we were founded in 2015. Shelter to the Lake Tahoe Collaborative. And so our nonprofit came out of that with a mission to support our neighbors who are experiencing homelessness by our goal is to promote awareness, to provide warm beds, and to encourage self-sufficiency. Mr. Rush was kind enough to ask me to tell you about the Warm Room today and to tell you about the future of our organization and some of our upcoming opportunities, and then how to address homelessness in South Lake Tahoe in 15 to 20 minutes. So you're going to get a really quick overview of all those things. And so we partner with a lot of groups in the community to provide our services. We have 12 members of our board of directors. We've had city council members as part of our advisory council. We have a task force where we meet with police officers sometimes. Sometimes Lauren or the Parks and Rec meet with us. So we really have tried to make this a collaborative effort from the beginning, and have appreciated all of that from all of you and the rest of the community. I'm going to start with some general statistics. Homelessness is an issue that is nationwide. Every other year, there's an alternating count of either number of homeless people or the number of beds available for shelter in the country. It's demanded by HUD that we all do this, and they pick a day in January, so there's the lowest amount of people on the streets that are available for this count. And there are more than 500,000 homeless people in the United States in 2018, 130,000 in California. In the count in 2017, it was around 600 in El Dorado County, around 94 in 2017. And the numbers have been sort of between 50 and 70 for a number of years, and we've all been saying there's at least 100 people who live year-round in South Lake Tahoe outside in the winter. And I think finally we're getting better at counting this data. The last count was actually done in January, but the county has not finalized the numbers yet, so I don't have those to share with you. I'm hopeful that when Daniel Del Monte comes June 4th that you'll get that information, but right now I don't have it. So homelessness is primarily the result of poverty and a lack of affordable housing, and then there are a lot of other contributors. And so The South Lake Tahoe War Room was opened 4 years ago, and it's very limited in what we do. We're an overnight emergency winter shelter. We're open generally from December through April, sort of the harshest Tahoe months. We try to serve 20 to 30 adult men, depending on the space that we've had, because we move around every year. And we definitely never put families in the warm room. There are a lot of resources available for youth under the age of resources, I believe, but when we find a family that needs housing, we put them into an emergency motel room for a few nights until they can access those resources. And the important thing to know is that the warm room is this way to meet the immediate need of people, but we know that people need more than just a shelter. And so what we've tried to do is be what we call a referral way station. And we refer people to resources who need them, plug them into agencies, and try to offer as many things in the warm room as we can. So someone from Human Services comes to the warm room every week and signs people up for Medi-Cal or signs people up for food stamps. We have Advance, which helps people with their education goals or career goals come to the warm room. They come every other week. We have an alcohol and drug treatment support group that we do. And so we try really to offer people what they need at that one location, and that really does help people's needs better be served. So since we opened in 2015, we've been open over 450 nights. We have provided over 10,400 shelter bed nights, which seems kind of unreal, and we've served over 300 people. And then I apologize for my typo. I missed a space, but there were 14 families that we've served with emergency motel rooms since we opened. This year we opened from December 12th through April 12th. We provided over 3,000 shelter bed nights, served 113 different people, one family with children. And just in contrast, I think we served 8 or 9 families that huge winter we had 2 years ago. And so I really think that the things that the community and the county are doing to help families who are homeless really seem to be working, because we've seen less the last 2 years. We've averaged 25 guests a night. We saw 27 women, 84 men, and 2 non-gender conforming clients this year. Only 4 people have used the warm room for 4 years in a row, and the average stay this year was 19 nights, and over the last 3 years, the average stay's been between 14 and 21 nights. So it's generally an emergency stopgap. There are some people who use the warm room more frequently and some who just need it as that emergency situation. 21% of our guests were employed at some point while staying in the warm room this year. 8 people found their job while they were staying in the warm room. So some of those resources and abilities, I think, did help some folks get jobs this winter. And those are the different industries in which they were employed. And then these numbers are self-reported by our guests. So our guests certainly suffer from mental health issues, drug and alcohol abuse, developmental disabilities and physical disabilities, and history of domestic violence. And then 25% of our guests are chronically homeless. And this number's been going up nationally and going up in the warm room, and that number, we're usually within a couple of points. So I think that what we're seeing is that our country's getting better at helping people get out of homelessness and into housing faster. But the hardest people to house are the people that are maybe the most challenging for a variety of reasons and have been homeless for longer than a year, or have had multiple episodes of homelessness that total over a year or in the years prior. We try to take a housing first approach in the warm room. So what that means is that we're trying to help people independent to permanent housing instead of sticking with this emergency shelter situation. El Dorado County doesn't have a lot of resources to address homelessness if you look at it historically, but we're growing the resources a lot in this county, and I'll tell you more about that. This winter, we assisted 24 people in finding housing, which is awesome. In 2018, it was a total of 34 people that we assisted in finding housing. There are a lot of ways that we do that. 4 of those 24 people were through our connecting them to resources or providing them with funds for a deposit and a first month's rent. Rapid rehousing is done in our county through a nonprofit called Only Kindness in Placerville, and 2 of our employees are contractors through that nonprofit. So when we have someone who needs housing and they qualify for rapid rehousing, they know all the documents, they get them all dialed in, and they get them the funding, and it works beautifully. And then we also have a grant through El Dorado Community Foundation Senior Fund, and we were able to put someone into a housing situation, again, by paying for the first deposit. This year, 11 people found housing locally. 6 of them moved out of the area when they realized, they couldn't make it, or maybe they had family. Actually, all the people who moved to family were either California or Nevada family members, and then one person had a medical condition and moved to a board and care home. But what we've known from the beginning, which you all know, and I think was especially a criticism of us when we first started, is that what happens when the warm room closes? The needs of homeless people don't end on April 12th when our lease is up, or when we've decided to close, whatever the weather is. And so we've really been working at trying to offer more than just a warm room. And so last July, we sublet an office space at Tahoe Youth and Family Services, and we're doing that again now. And we do street outreach, which means our staff will go to someone there, and when someone needs something, the staff at Bread and Broth, the volunteers, are so happy because they say, I don't know, just go talk to that lady over there, go talk to Susie, go talk to Kat, because they don't know, they're volunteers, they don't know the answers of how people need to access resources. We have been invited to walk some of the encampments with the local police department. The hospital will sometimes call us, and we'll try to connect someone. We put someone in an emergency hotel room and helped connect him to get his Social Security benefits that he was eligible for. He was a blind man living in the woods with a medical problem last summer. Tried to do outreach in the community, and we're going to be growing that this year as well. And last year we had 31 different people that we met, entered into our database, and another 8 just by helping connect them. And the resources people need are like, how do I talk to a landlord about cleared so that I can do this? How do I, where do I need to look? You need to be a member of Facebook's Knuckle Draggers of Tahoe in order to find some of these rooms for rent, or what websites on Craigslist do they need to access? And it's been interesting to see what ways we can get creative. We also started 2 new programs last fall so that, again, we're more than a warm room. If you qualify with severe enough mental illness, which is actually really hard to get services at behavioral health through El Dorado County, being trained, one is trained and the other is in the process of being trained for something called SOAR, which is a way to provide assistance for people who qualify and are applying for disability. And then you may have seen in the paper, Rob Katz and Elena Amsterdam are the CEOs for Vail Corporation, and they have a focus on mental health. So they have given us a $65,000 grant over 2 years, and we've hired a social worker. In the past, we depended on volunteer social work, and as you guys know, volunteers can be, sometimes not available. And so our social worker is doing mental health counseling and intensive case management for those of our clients who need those things and maybe don't qualify for the therapy or the services at mental health. We also were training, we did train a staff in what we call smart recovery, and she's doing that, drug and alcohol abuse in the warm room support group. Then there's something called coordinated entry, and we started this in 2017 with Youth and Family Services and that other nonprofit, Only Kindness, in Placerville. And this process is developed so we know that everybody experiencing a housing crisis in our community has fair and equal access to services. Because if you take me and I become homeless, I have some marketable skills, I have a car, I don't have a medical or physical disability, so it's pretty easy for me to, it's not gonna be easy, but I can probably go to mental health and go to the county office and go to apply for food stamps, and I can probably do all that and get it all done. But if I'm a blind guy living in the forest in South Lake Tahoe and I don't have any income, how am I going to figure out how to get on the bus to get to the hospital or a doctor's appointment? And so what this does is it helps us figure out who's the most at risk, and it ranks people. Our county has a, and what we try to do is find those most vulnerable people and figure out how to make them ready for housing. And eventually our county will have more housing. Coordinated entry process, and they also require us to have something called a continuum of care. And Daniel Del Monte, who and that's the collaboration of local agencies and citizens and government agencies who are working to eliminate homelessness in our county. By having a continuum of care, we actually find that we become more eligible for funding because we are in compliance with what HUD says we have to do, and if we're going to get funds. And so El Dorado County has increased funding like 4 or 5-fold from 3 years ago to now. We're getting, I think, $1.4 million this fiscal year to address issues related to homelessness. And so it's really spectacular what that group has done in the last 3 years that I've been a part of it. So related to coordinated entry, come this summer, we're negotiating a contract with El Dorado County to be the lead agency to be performing coordinated entry. And what I think is great about that is so much of the time our resources up here are dependent on Placerville, and now we're going to be the group in charge for the whole county to kind of get that going and get us compliant. It's a huge, blows my mind a little bit that we're going to get this done, but Emma's going to help. And so that is going to entry, doing outreach with the police department, or doing outreach with the jail and probation and wherever people are hanging out. There's a community service block grant that is going to be contracted with us through the county come July. And this is going to be something of $30,000, $20,000 is for direct services for people in our community for prevention and diversion. So I think about apartment complexes that might be about to be condemned and how that happens, in December, and people are sort of scrambling at the last minute trying to figure out where they're going to live. We have money to help people pay in July and April of next year. We've got to spend 20 grand on it, and we're going to be doing it up here in South Lake Tahoe. If we can't, that's trying to keep someone from entering the system at all. So let's say someone's in town and something happens and they become homeless, but they have family, send them to where they have housing or family available so that they're diverted out of the system. And I think that is really going to be something. A few slides are talking a little bit about ending homelessness in South Lake Tahoe. And again, I don't have all the answers. I'm not the genius with I think that a housing first approach is really important. What you look at across the country is when people just put people into housing that are homeless, they cost the system less, and they're able to address all the other issues that they have in their lives. It's really hard to get a job or get mental eat tonight, and how are you going to get a shower, and where do you have to go to the bathroom? So I think that our organization encourages the county is not going to be easy. The Housing Assistance Council does a report on rural homelessness, and it's referenced there, affordable housing. But other underlying contributors are unemployment, mental illness, transportation issues, health issues. So ending homelessness is more than I can do. It requires jobs that pay a living wage, ways to support people who can't work, affordable housing, access. Things are in your wheelhouse, so you can work on some of that. But I think everyone in our community is going to have to participate. Another concrete way that you guys as City Council can help end homelessness is in that El Dorado Opportunity Knocks continuum of care. There's a vacancy on the board for a government representative from South Lake Tahoe. And Daniel Del Monte, the Deputy Director of Community Services, will be at that next meeting, and he'll share more with you about what the county and the COC need. But I would really love for this to be an appointed position with the council, like we do for a lot of other appointed commissions. The creation of the COC and bringing it into compliance, like I said, is increased funding for our county, and there's going to be a strategic planning process in the next 6 to 12 months, so I'm hoping that council will participate in the strategic plan, and members of the community and law enforcement can participate in that plan, and hopefully that will improve our funding and improve our resources, because that's what the most important thing is. So the other thing we can do that I think we all continually do is keep collaborating as groups in our community, and anytime you see something related to homelessness, I know it's all my fault. I hear it all the time, Tahoe Coalition for the Homeless, this, that, or the other, and I know that we're not always popular, but we are open to listening to people and trying to work out a compromise that suits everyone in the community. I know I've sat on commissions with a lot of people in this room where we've worked on that, and I think we've grown to have really good relationships because of collaboration. Information, and sometimes the humanity gets lost because I love statistics and I love talking about those sorts of things, but I want to just tell you, and his wife dies, he loses his job, and then he loses his house because of that, and that's a Tahoe local, and that person stays in the warm room and sometimes move on and improve their lives. One of my favorite stories is from last summer, where there was a woman who was stranded from wherever she was living, and he needed to get to a job that he was trying to have. So the woman and the man were connected through our staff in Carson City. And I just think the stories like that are really cool. There are a lot of people who success as quickly as some of us might want them to see success. But in general, I believe everybody matters. All these folks deserve honor. Try to keep in the forefront of our mind. So that is the end.
Excellent presentation. Thank you. And we don't blame you at all. We thank you.
Well, I appreciate that, and I hope you guys have a great evening.
Go home and get some sleep. Thank you, Dr.
And this last winter, there was a group of 5 directors from Barton who went over there and served pizza, and it was really, people that were staying there were, and it was so well run and so well organized, and the people were just so grateful. Really interesting to talk to the people. So thank you for everything you're doing.
And thanks for coming. I think that that meant a lot to us.
All righty. Let's go ahead and move on to the consent agenda. Are there any?
No, Madam Mayor.
Okay. And Madam City Attorney?
No, Madam Mayor.
Okay. Members of the public to speak on any item on consent? Mr. Teixeira.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Members, action on consent calendar item 10, the South Shore Regional Housing Opportunity Assessment and Action Plan, well-written staff report on this very important issue. And those we house won't end up in the warm room. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Address number 9 for putting a 1% fee, a PEG fee for charter communications. And I'm opposed to this for the reason that you state here under additional city manager Zoom, one way or another, charter is not going to absorb that. And it says these funds may be used in the future devices and other new technology to enhance South Lake Tahoe TV Channel 21. One additional potential future expanded use by other governmental entities and city partners, and also potentially as a component of any future new city hall building. We're 54 years old and still homeless. So, this is for, enacting it now, unless, you want to just build up the kitty, and collect for a number of years to do something. So, equipment, done a good job of upgrading as it is. But yeah, I mean, for us, and it is quite absorbent at their rates as it is. Okay, on to number 10. Okay, whether we should give to nonprofits. This is going to the Tahoe Prosperity Center, presumably, right? $35,000. So I really think this shouldn't be on the consent agenda. Should be moved to a public hearing item. Project, and this is the South Shore Regional Housing Opportunity Assessment and Action Plan. And read it in its entirety, and it's quite good. We've done a lot to our housing element studies, and you all think we need $150,000 further study. That's going to take another year and a half to complete. Neglected. So I object to this contribution. Says additional new revenue sources that are based on housing types, use, and quantities for the city. What new revenue sources, I would like to know. Important question, is this being contracted out by the Tahoe Prosperity Center, or is it being conducted in-house by them? Multifamily VHRs last year and a half ago, were voted to, they were never supposed to be single-family homes, only reversed themselves on it, of taking them out and making, therefore we could have had, I estimated, about 35 to 40 that could have gone. People own them instead of when their permits were up. I think you ought to go back and look at that, and and create the stroke of a pen 35, 40 at least housing units. Thank you.
Madam Mayor, may I ask Mr. Mosier a question? So since you saved, you didn't use your first 3 minutes on the first one, I'll give you a minute to answer. What is the basic solution to our...
This really can't, it's not intended to be a conversation. If you want him to clarify something he said, or if you have a specific
Can you clarify
question.
very basics fix to the housing problem?
It's not one thing. The first thing, and which I've stated each units, been taking out mobile home parks, and converting them into $1 million affordable housing spaces, and very places where people can walk to work in every case. That's the first step. I think it's multi-pronged, but it's pretty simple. Is looking for conversion. And like I said, behind Hotel Azure, that mobile home park there, of picking places that are closed if they won't sell it to you.
Thank you.
Because there's a very good space right there. I think the best opportunity in the city, and it's right there and vacant right now.
Are there any other members of the public that would like to speak on consent agenda items? Okay, seeing discussion, or do you have questions on any item? Troublemaker?
Agenda.
Okay, thank you. There's a
I'll
motion
second.
and a second. Any further discussion? Okay, please vote.
That
Under unfinished business, and Mr. City Manager, do you want to introduce this item?
Yes, Madam Mayor, Council, I'm happy to actually lead off with 4 consecutive items that were identified as high priorities by the council during your recent planning sessions, also 2 that were on the consent agenda. So we are working hard to execute your priorities and to move the purchase of the fire department's ladder truck, and it also includes the retirement of some outstanding debt. And Interim Chief Jim Drennan.
Good evening, Madam Mayor, Council. Jim Drennan, I'm your current interim fire chief. On the purchase of a new ladder truck for the city. Specifications and a drawing are included in the intro in terms of where we have come, where we're at now, where we're going with that. Without belaboring the point, built by the manufacturer Ferrara, which netted a $1.75 million win for us in a lawsuit. Really until now, and still don't have one now. I could probably discuss how we got here.
Thank you.
Yeah. But the basic specification of this vehicle is pretty straightforward. It will be a 2-wheel drive. That vehicle is to obviously provide an aerial master stream, but it's also designed for aerial rescue at higher level. Really designed to carry heavy equipment, so extrication, forcible entry, auto extrication tools, low big rolling toolbox. It's much different than an engine company that's primary purpose is to push water through hose. With that, is seen depends on what your options are. We've opted to go more with a straight truck design. However, it will. If that truck company were to pull up on a fire first due, it would still have the capacity to put water on the fire immediately. And so we felt that was not good. The price that was originally quoted when I came to council several months ago, so what you see in front of you, a final price of $1.2 million, actually $20,031 is the final price. Through direction from the city manager, we're looking to sort of eradicate some of that debt and forward with apparatus replacement. And what that does is it erases the current debt on the truck, on the old truck, which served 2 purposes we're going to give away. But also too, and I think more importantly for the city and for the fire department, is it removes that debt, and we're no longer paying with this ladder truck and with this design. We have an apparatus committee, and that's comprised of 2 people from motor pool and 2 people from that process, and then ended up taking over apparatus from the person who had started the last ladder truck. And on a personal note, vehicles, a boat, my track record so far is I've come in under budget and on time or ahead of schedule with every one of them. Also includes something that we haven't done in the past that I requested the city manager to place into this draft report, and that is to approve a generator or a ladder truck or a fire engine or a fireboat. That build process, it's a custom built vehicle no matter how you do it. Up every last nut and bolt is part of the specification. With engines, we've gotten to the point where I think we have a really good spec to city council or to the city manager both and request change orders. It's a 330-day build. Things are going to come up to make some changes without having to continually come back to council if we're, $100 off or, $50,000. Apparatus committee is 2 people from the fire department and 2 from motor pool. That's Tom and Phil Harwood. They have been instrumental throwing around right now that we might make some small changes on, but otherwise what you see in front of you is what we intend on ordering soon.
And 2-wheel drive, is that normal to have 2-wheel drive versus 4-wheel drive?
So yeah, we can have a pretty lengthy conversation here. So kind of a mechanized ladder in the city since the 60s. In 1982, Van Pelt was building a really nice vehicle, was in service for 30 years. That's the one that retired in 2012, 2013. With that, same thing. And when they did that, they said, yeah, no problem, we can absolutely do that. Only they couldn't. Current requirement, what's now known as a tilt table test, which they never had 30 years ago, puts it on a big platform and then rolls it over to a, right? So what we had before was a rear mount 75-foot ladder with four-wheel drive. And what they wanted to build is how we sort of got the bizarre configuration we got before. So in order to sling four-wheel drive underneath, there's one other apparatus that was built back in the 90s that has four-wheel drive with a ladder on it, and I wouldn't drive that thing around a corner at more than about 20 miles an hour ever. And using chains, and like in this spec, we've requested a locking rear differential, which means that if you've ever used a four-wheel back end up, so it should track very well. The other thing that we determined in the city is that the vast majority of responses from large homes up near Heavenly and Heavenly itself, but the vast majority of our call volume is going to be on flat road. So
years before we get that sort of, have we added anything into the contract or the purchase where we have more of an assurance of against duds?
So we'll share this with you. It's one of the main reasons we went with Pierce Manufacturing. So as an example, problems or other issues, and this is from not just the fire department, but also from the shop. The response that we got from Ferrara was service. They also didn't have anybody out on the West Coast that was a true Ferrara service dealer. What they do is they actually, Pierce has Golden State fire apparatus right in Sacramento. And that outfit has been family-owned business 100%, to the point where if we have an issue with something, they'll put people in a pickup truck and drive straight up to deal with the problem. Literally like going from a vehicle manufactured by somebody that you know that has a really nice shop. You'd have to take a tour of Pierce to really have that sense of safety with that, but I'm more than confident.
Part of that history is, my understanding was the previous ladder truck did not fit into our station. It's just over 40 feet long. Does it fit into Station 2?
The last one was 50 feet, and we got it in with no problem. So, and that's part of, once we realized we were going to be blowing the wall out 3 feet, that's what got us to a mid-mount vehicle, and then the guy in length. But yes, it fits. But good question.
Other questions?
You can come down in one of two ways. Yes, they will end up coming down a ladder. However, no one comes down a ladder without our. When you add a bucket that is this tall by wider than the podium, it makes it really difficult for us to get into people who've worked extensively on ladder trucks. It's far more frustrating to not be able to get the ladder to the building than it is to just put someone on a ladder. But don't necessarily take my word for it. You can YouTube lots and lots of videos of rescues with straight sticks and buckets alike. 8-stick ladders is going to be the same. It's all based on the geometry of the length out overhang. So even though you have a bucket, it's not the bucket. It just means that you might have somebody that's incapable of moving. It'd be they would have more, no matter how it is, if it's a straight stick or a bucket. We attach them to the vehicle, so they're not falling out of it either way. Low grade, everything's above grade. We had to take into consideration the actual ability to insert the stick where we need it and be able to dodge.
In the TERS core area where all of our utilities are underground, and what I'm worried about is that person that's disabled person. Can you walk up down that ladder 3 wide? I mean, yeah.
So you can't go down the ladder 3 wide, and you couldn't do that with a bucket either. And you at Embassy and you put it up at the 5th floor. It's never really advisable to be running the bucket back and forth to the ground. So, and if it came to a point where they were either too large or incapable of moving or just scared and locked in, then the other one last thing with the bucket too is with the rear mount, it puts the bucket down over the cab and it actually sits in front of the cab, and so the door to the right. So it requires them to ask the guy sitting on the right, say, hey, am I going to hit something? And so for safety, being able to move.
Thank you. Mm-hmm. Any other questions at this time of council? No? Okay, I'll go ahead and open it up to the public. Are there any members? I saw a thumbs up, but okay. Seeing nobody, I'll bring it back to council for
Purchase of a fire ladder truck from Pierce Manufacturing for $1,220,031 and amending the fiscal year $1,819 and $613,189 from an unassigned truck expense.
Second. Okay, there's a motion and a second. Any further discussion? I'll just ask my one undesignated reserve. So with now this more than $500,000, what does that leave us with?
Yeah, assigned general fund reserves. That's in addition to approximately $11 million of additional general fund reserves. That is correct. It's 11.6 million.
Right. Okay, thank you. Any other questions?
That motion carries.
More money. How about some snow removal equipment, Mr. City Manager?
Both items previously appropriated, so it's money you've already allocated. And good news with this one, a little bit under budget. I'm going to call on Jim Marino from our Public Works Department to brief you on the purchase of 4 pieces of snow removal equipment.
Good evening, Madam Mayor, City Council. For the record, Jim Marino. Before you tonight is a motion to have the city manager approve 2 agreements of California out of Auburn for 3 motor graders, 160 M3s, at a total amount of $1.5. The second agreement would be for Kodiak America out of Burley, Idaho, for a CR77S at $636,803.50. These agreements were done via through federal outlets and state outlets, so we're good to go if we can just get approval. Any questions?
Thing I've noticed this year, obviously with it being a big winter, the road sand, there was a lot of road sand used, and there's still a lot of it on. Maybe this is a little tangential to this item. I know we go down the bike paths with the little blower and it blows. Is there some sort of attachment on that equipment
that particular piece of equipment, we're still going out to bid on that one. But to answer your question, yes, it's a multi-use piece of equipment, so it would have.
Mr. Marino? No? So we're doing an RFP on the snow blower for the
bid on that particular piece of equipment. And also, Mayor, I did want to, I heard you ask a question earlier about Measure S paying for them for the labor to operate that piece of equipment. Okay.
That's why I from now and go, oh, look what happened. So thank you for clarifying that. Thanks. Okay, we'll go ahead and open this up to members of the public. I see a thumbs up again. All right, seeing none, we'll bring it back to council for further discussion, questions.
Authorize the city manager to execute a cooperative purchase agreement with Holt of California, Pleasant Grove, California, in the amount of $1 160M3AWDL motor graders, and 2, sole source cooperative purchase agreement with Kodiak America, Burley, Idaho, for the purchase of 1 Kodiak model $36,803.
I will second that. Thank you for taking that one for the team.
Any further discussion? And again, this is monies that we still have the 4.4. This is monies that we've already. Let's vote.
That motion carries.
How easily you can just be erased. All right, council, doing well. Let's go ahead and move to our SB2 planning grant, and Mr. City Manager.
Call, you also appropriated a little more than $500,000 for the retirement of outstanding debt associated with some older snow removal equipment. Much like the comments from Interim Chief Drennan about the fire debt, it's part of our overall strategy to hopefully set us up removal equipment in the future. So working hard to try to put our folks with good, reliable equipment that looks good. So happy to introduce Hillary Rover.
Thank you. And thank you, Mayor Lane, members of the council. My name is Hillary Roveru, Deputy Director of Development Services. revenues that were generated by the California Building Homes and Jobs Act, or SB2, are being provided by the state and technical
between a general law city and a charter city has lessened or diminished over the years. So there's not as many advantages to being a charter city as there used to be. It's important to identify the problems that we're trying to solve, because it's possible that there may be alternative ways to solve those problems that don't require going through the process of becoming a charter city. On the other hand, there are still certain powers that charter cities do have that general law cities don't. So we need to weigh the costs and benefits. So I realize this is a big decision to make, And it's possible you might not be ready to move forward today, but may want more information. So in that situation, I would just ask that you direct me on specific areas you're interested in looking at, and I can bring back more information at a future meeting. So to set the stage, all cities in California have the power of home rule under the California Constitution. That's to make and enforce local laws that are not in conflict with general state laws. So when South Lake Tahoe incorporated originally, it was to gain more local control over issues like providing services to its residents, police, fire, snow removal, and that kind of thing. So general law cities can pass local ordinances that are consistent with state laws, or can pass ordinances in areas that the state hasn't legislated in yet. Charter cities have additional authority to adopt laws on municipal affairs that are not, or that are in conflict with state laws. So what is a municipal affair? The Constitution lays out 4 core areas. It's a non-exhaustive list, so there are a few others I'll talk about in a minute. But the 4 constitutional core areas of municipal affairs are the governance of the city's police force. In general law cities like ours, the police chief oversees the police force. Charter cities can establish alternate ways of governance, including having a police commission or an independent police auditor. The city form of government, general law cities have to have at least 5 council members, city clerk, city treasurer, police chief, and fire chief. Charter cities can have alternate forms of government, including a strong mayor form of government where you have the mayor running the city instead of the city manager. Local elections, charter cities can establish alternate municipal election procedures, including all mail ballots, terms for elected officials that are different than the state law terms, campaign finance limits, and redistricting commissions. And finally, charter cities can establish rules and conditions of service for public officials that are different than state law, including stricter rules on conflicts of interest or incompatible offices, or could establish other positions that aren't required in state law. For example, a city auditor is a fairly common one. So beyond this list, it's up to courts to determine what's a municipal affair, and that's done on a case-by-case basis. There's no static definition, so things are a little bit squishy. And to determine whether an issue is a municipal affair, the courts will address statewide concerns for the state law to preempt local law. A payment of prevailing wage with an asterisk, property transfer tax, and land use and planning. And I'll talk a little bit more about each of those. For public works contracting, general law cities are subject to the Public Contract Code requirements to award contracts above certain dollar amounts to the lowest responsible bidder. For charter cities, they can exempt themselves from those requirements for municipal projects, which would be locally funded. On prevailing wage, it has been held and still is the case under the case law that charter cities don't have to pay prevailing wage on locally funded projects. However, there was legislation passed by the state legislature in 2013, SB 7, that severely penalized charter cities that did so. It basically cuts off all abilities to get state funding or loans. So I'm not aware of any charter cities currently who are not paying prevailing wage. So that's used to be a benefit where you'd have some flexibility that's been taken away. On taxes, charter cities generally have the same taxing authority as general law cities, except that courts have upheld the ability of charter cities to establish property transfer taxes that are higher than the amount that general law cities are allowed to impose. And then finally, land use and planning. Generally, unless the state law says that it applies to charter cities, it does not. However, with the statewide housing crisis, there's a trend in the judiciary and legislature towards applying all these to charter cities. And in addition, here, we have the special circumstance of TRPA jurisdiction, so becoming a charter city wouldn't impact that at all. A few fun facts here. So there's 482 incorporated cities in California, and about 25% are charter cities. Cities in California are chartered, and of the 207 cities under a population of 25,000, only about 12% are chartered. Some of the benefits, these are two that I've just identified, having heard your strategy workshop in February and listened to you have conversations with you along the way on things that you may be interested in doing as a body. The two main benefits I've identified, and there may be others, but just to focus the conversation, public works contracting could be an area that you may be interested in exploring. Charter cities can develop alternate methods of procurement, such as design build, job order contracting, that they can use on municipal projects. Property transfer tax. Becoming a charter city or exploring becoming a charter city was one of the objectives that was noted in the draft council policies and goals for 2019 and beyond, and it was under revenue generation. So this would be the main way that a charter city can generate more revenue. So just a little bit more on that. There are some charter cities that have passed higher property transfer taxes. Most of the action in this area has been in the Bay Area, specifically the East Bay. A lot of the cities in Alameda County and Contra Costa County have increased their property transfer tax. So the range is about from $450 per $1,000 to $15 per $1,000, and that's based on the actual sale price of the property. It is important to note that if that's something that council is interested in exploring, we'd probably want to look at that pretty carefully. To be adopted by the voters at a general election. There would probably be some legal costs incurred, staffing, just of setting aside other council priorities to focus on this. It is, from what I understand, a pretty intensive process. There could be legal challenges. So adopting a charter, becoming a charter city, does give people who may be unhappy with a city decision another grounds to potentially challenge it in court, that being that it's inconsistent with the city charter. Also, there's always litigation over what is a municipal affair versus an area of statewide concern. Charters kind of ossify or harden the city law. They can only be amended by a majority vote of the people. On the flip side, I would point out that they can be amended by majority vote. So in a small city like this, as we've seen, it doesn't take a lot of votes to get something to pass sometimes. So we may end up with almost kind of a fluid city constitution if we have a lot of initiatives to amend our charter. And then the fourth point to consider what powers or revenue sources you want to explore. It could be divisive in the community, could even result in less control. It's possible that in the process of drafting the charter, there could be provisions added that limit our ability to govern as opposed to expand. So I'll talk a little bit now about the process to become a charter city and the various ways that that can happen. I'll start at the end, and that's that the charter has to be adopted by a majority vote of city voters at a general 20. And then there's three pathways to get there. The first is with an elected charter commission. The second is a city council appointed charter committee, or the city council could elect to draft the charter itself or direct staff to do so. The timeline varies depending on the pathway. So I'll start with the longest and perhaps most cumbersome, and that's the elected charter commission. It could take about 3 years to get from here, point A, to point B, which would be the charter being adopted or passed. So the first step there would be council would call an election to form a charter commission, and again, the next available election day for that would be the March 2020 date. On the ballot would be the question of whether to form a charter commission, and then if the answer to that is yes, there's a yes vote, then the 15 top candidates would be seated on the commission, and that can all happen at the same election. The commission then has 2 years to draft the charter and file it with the city clerk, and the commission terminates at the end of that 2-year period, and then it's placed on the next general election ballot that's at least 95 days away. A drawback to this potentially is that council doesn't have authority to make changes to the draft charter before it's placed on the ballot. The second pathway, kind of the medium approach, is the charter committee. The way that one works is council would appoint the committee. There's flexibility in how that's done. It's been done various ways with various cities. For example, each council member could appoint one person. It could be a subcommittee of council in addition to members appointed from the community, or it could be kind of how we do normal boards and commissions here, which would be the clerk would solicit for people who are interested, and then they would be appointed by the council as a whole. So then the committee would develop recommendations for a draft charter, which would be brought back to council. And this timeline assumes we're aiming for the November election. They'd have to be brought back to council by May 2020 to make that election day. And then council would place the charter on the ballot. At that time, they could either put on the ballot as proposed, make changes to it, or decide not to put it on the ballot. And then finally, election day in November. So a long period of time between when council receives the recommendation in May 2020 and when they place it on the ballot is because there's a state law process. There has to be 2 public hearings, 21 or 30 days apart, each with 21 days notice. And finally, the most streamlined approach would be that council drafts the charter itself or directs staff to do so. However, the risk of doing it this way is there's not as many opportunities for public input, and at the end of the day, the voters have to approve the charter, so there's a risk that they won't support it if they haven't been involved. So council could either direct staff or form an ad hoc committee potentially to draft the charter. If it's drafted by, so I have a little typo on here. So if it's drafted by September 2019, council could call the election in March. And if it's drafted by May, then they could call it in August. So once again, I've just repeated the areas where I'm asking for your direction and would request that council passes a motion to make sure we have clear direction on how to proceed. And then I'm also available to answer any questions you may have.
You're right. Let's jump right in, and I'll just remind the council that the process will be we will ask clarifying questions, and then we'll open it up to the public and hear what the public has to say, and then we'll bring it back to the council for discussion and the normal course of how we do business, okay? So clarifying questions from the council. We'll start with Councilmember Wallace.
Ms. Stroud, you say that a number of reasons for that, but a lot of the reason is probably resources. Resources and staffs. The state law limits on salaries probably are not sufficient to support that kind of.
I'm a city here in California changed from general law to charter.
The most recent one I'm aware of was
LCTV.
It did.
Okay.
You asked both of my questions. Good job.
Great minds.
Councilmember.
Charter City, we have realized what the transfer tax could possibly bring in if we met the median number here.
I don't know, Mr. Rush, do you have that figure?
Yeah, we've estimated that a transfer fee of $10.
And then as far as transfer tax, that would apply not only to residential properties being transferred, but also commercial properties. So for
generally, they're set up to cover all property transfers where money's changing hands.
And then, so with in public works ability for us to go on to that, I mean, we could realize a benefit in the sense to the Lake Tahoe region as much, and we want to select a person that is, cost more money. We're able to do that, where right now in a general law city, we have no choice. We just have to go with the lowest bidder, regardless of the quality of
bidder. So if the bid isn't responsive or the bidder is not responsible, they would be disqualified. But charter cities might be looking at other benefits that the city could reap from a particular contractor based on however the RFP is designed.
Just one other question. So from your perspective, the bidding issue as well, is that?
Yeah, that's how it first came on my radar, was at our councils.
And so what is the reason as a general law city that we cannot influence
state law that limits the general law city property transfer tax to 55 cents per $1,000. And
which we currently assess.
We do. We
at the
collect that.
55 cents per thousand level. Okay. The other question, statewide, and nationwide. And it's fair to assume that although a property transfer tax to the coffers, if we're able to do $10, almost 1,000% increase, that also is going to probably. So, is there any leveling piece there, or any thought on how much across the market?
I mean, I would say that that's if council does want to move forward with that, the level at what the tax is set at would be $3 up to $15 in some of the Bay Area cities, and I think it's based on what we feel our residents would vote.
Perfect. Thank you. Other questions? We're good? Okay. We'll open this up to the public, and I have a list here, and hear your thoughts.
Tahoe, and I'd like to give you some first impressions based on 40 years in states. The trend has been for the courts and legislature to erode the differences between the charter cities and reducing the perceived benefits, and I would agree. That's my observation. The trend from the legislature is to delegate more responsibility down to the local level, not necessarily thing. Becoming a charter city, it's an entree or an invitation to a bigger, more complex government. Be aware of the significant potential for unintended consequences. And I think that, feel free to take a longer time frame if that's what you really need to do it right. Cycle or one election cycle, and a lot of half-baked things failed because they weren't laid out properly.
Those were a good 2 or 3 cents. We appreciate it. Mr. Teixeira?
On behalf of the Lake Tahoe South Shore Chamber of Commerce, we agree with Mr. Gregorich's comments. Those are all very good points. We have stood at this podium on capital improvements, on additional personnel for police and fire. Those are all very good things. And I know you have more work to do. And I think, as Mr. Gregorich said, the legislature seems always busy, dealing with the local charter city process. And, counties there are some counties that are charter counties too, Placer County being one of them in our area. So that's something that really the legislature should give all the cities and counties that ability anyway, without having to go through this state representatives to move in that direction, because entities that do have that ability to take not only the lowest people with quality work, maybe there's other ways to go about doing that rather than becoming a charter city. Report are instructive. If it was really great, probably more would do it. It's really something probably better constructed for large. System that we have here in terms of you're all equal, everybody gets a chance to be mayor, you rotate around as a complex and costly. It would be something that you would be asking the citizens in one way or another, perhaps other ways to get a better bidding structure that the city could pursue. So
I'm the only other member of the public left. This is a rather
us or staff to have to put a lot of time
mostly yours. However, I'm not a huge fan of taxes. In fact, I'm not a huge fan of this transfer tax. A really great streets improvement program, more snow. A possible way to pay for it. I'm not saying it's the way. That is something that our community would go for, nor would I. Our costs, which is a really great way to look at things for us pursuing the bidder, we can do something more of a long-term.
Move towards, but perhaps a low-level chartering the city, or looking at idea and maybe some synergy behind moving forward with something. So